guys, Mr. Ridgway here. So this video is not really going to be explaining much of anything in content. I really want to take this time here in this video for people who are doing this lesson flipped to kind of walk you through very calmly the process of making your own choose your own adventure game. So the background here before we get to this, we are still in the Spanish-American War, okay, but as you can tell based on this slide and as you go through these activities here below, we're going to be talking about the Philippines, okay? So what happens in the Philippines is essentially, to sum it up here, is that the US takes possession of it afterwards. It helps liberate Filipinos from the Spanish who had been there, but then afterwards relationships between basically the Filipinos and the US break down. The Filipinos in that area, even though it's much more complicated than this, eventually start an insurgency, and there's quite a bit of warfare and crimes against humanity and some pretty other awful stuff that happens here. And so what you're going to be doing, okay, as it says here, is analyzing the complex actions, relationships, and consequences of anti-insurrection efforts, and then also looking at U.S. efforts against Filipino revolutionaries after the Spanish-American War. Okay, so you're going to be making a choose-your-own-adventure game where you try to essentially give people a real taste for what it was like on the ground to try to crush the Filipino insurgency. Okay, now, so essentially this slide kind of sums up what kind of I explained here, okay? But after fighting begins between U.S. forces who are still there and Filipino insurrectionists, there's this question: how should the U.S. crush this insurgency? And then what will the consequences of those decisions be? And that's really kind of what you're going to be exploring in this game. If you don't know what an insurgency is, I'll explain it here very briefly for you. An insurgency is once an army has taken over an area. Basically what an insurgency is it's a way to fight back against occupiers without doing so basically through open warfare. So insurgents, in terms of fighting against occupiers, will oftentimes blend in with the civilian population. They'll do hit and run or guerrilla type attacks to achieve their aims. And normally how an insurgency works is simply you're trying to bleed the enemy into basically stopping the fight against you because they just essentially give up. And so, okay, you're going to be teaching the players the complex actions, relationships, and consequences that come out of an anti-insurgent effort. And again, you're going to be making your choose your own adventure game. Now, please, please, please do not freak out. This is going to seem very intimidating as you started, but I've got all the resources here for you. Okay, so I've got a history down here of the insurgency, so you can actually pull from good resources. There's examples of both choose your own adventure stories that I've written, okay, as well as this one right here is one that a couple of students wrote for last year. You can kind of see what I mean by looking at, like, the complex kind of like back and forth that happens. Okay, if I choose to burn down this village, then that's going to result in civilians in that area feeling blah, and maybe they don't have crops for this next year because you burned down their crops as well. Okay, over here is the app you're going to use. It's called Inkwriter. Okay, here I teach you how to use Inkwriter. Please, please, please check this out. Use it. Okay, how I'm grading you, the rubric is right here. And then last but not least, where you'll turn your story in, okay, is right here at this trophy. I'm going to go ahead and click on the rubric just to make sure that we're all familiar with this and what I expect of you. Okay. And then other than that, that's pretty much the end of this video. Again, just kind of to calmly walk you through what's going on. So, basically, what are the scores? I'm only going to go over this left-hand column of what gets you the most points. Is the story historically accurate? Are the events in the story plausible? Okay, so no historical inaccuracies. The story reads like historical fiction, meaning we know it probably didn't happen, but it definitely feels like it's written based off of actual data and evidence and things like that. Okay, actions. Does the player have a variety of options to combat the insurgency? Okay, now it is done the best, okay, when essentially players, like, the consequences kind of add up. So if I do this earlier in the story, how does that limit my options or open up other options later on? Okay, relationships. You kind of get into the relationships between American soldiers, insurgents, and then also Filipino citizens, okay? And then also consequences. Do you illuminate the complex effects of combating an insurgency? You can show how the effects kind of accumulate over time. So this kind of goes with these actions right here. Okay, so again, this is how I'm grading you. Focus on, these kind of big 4 areas. Okay, and other than that, there is going to be in this story, as you write it, a lot of second person. Okay, so you can go and do this. What do you choose? Okay, those kind of things. Definitely check out the samples. Okay, they'll show you how to write a good introduction to these stories and how to make the reader feel like they're really there. Okay, but again, focus on authenticity, actions, relationships, and consequences, and you will come up with a really good, nuanced, in-depth story. Until then, I'll see you guys later, and good luck on your writing. Bye-bye.